Yo, what's going on, you guys? Today I've got another Transformers crossover comic I think you're really going to enjoy. It's Star Trek versus the Transformers.
Please, Spock, do me a favor. And don't say it's fascinating. No. But it is interesting.
Now, I'm relatively new to the Star Trek franchise. I'm not going to lie, I only started watching it about a year ago, but that's thanks to Strange New Worlds, which is a great show. I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was a pretty good starting point for a new fan like myself, but I've also seen some episodes of the original series and Enterprise. Don't get me started on the theme song. I skip it every single time.
It's been a long road getting from there to here.
But if you've been a fan of Star Trek for a really long time, more specifically the original series, or even a fan of the Generation 1 cartoon of Transformers, this comic is 100% for you, and it's full of nostalgia. And I got to admit, I really enjoyed this comic. It was a lot of fun to read, and it left me really wanting more. But I don't think there's any plans for them to do any more Star Trek Transformers crossovers, which is kind of unfortunate because for whatever reason, these actually just like blended perfectly well together. And it felt like often I was just reading an episode of the original series that so happened to feature Transformers characters. Seriously, I could talk about this comic all day long, but enough rambling. Let's take a look at Star Trek versus the Transformers. Captain's Log, Stardate 5892.7. The Enterprise has been called to Cygnus 7, a remote dilithium mine dangerously close to the Klingon border. Upon arrival, Uhura reports that the ship's sensors are scrambled by an unknown force. Spock reports sensors detect no starships in the immediate vicinity, Klingon or otherwise, leaving Captain Kirk no choice but to beam down with an away team comprised of Spock, Sulu, and Miraas. However, when they reach the surface, they find the peaceful Federation colony under attack. The away team narrowly escapes the attackers' crossfire as Miraas observes the attacking ships. Spock notes that the vehicles appear to be of human design, while Sulu adds that they resemble late 20th century military aircraft. But what could they be doing here on Cygnus 7? Captain Kirk acknowledges that these questions will have to wait as he attempts to hail the Enterprise. Unfortunately, there's no response. His focus shifts, however, when he notices something odd about the attacking vehicles. Captain Kirk remarks that these 20th century airplanes appear to be piloting themselves, to which Spock responds, "Pilots or no pilots, something unusual is going on here." Before they can fully assess the situation, one of the attackers fires a missile that explodes against the side of a mountain, revealing what appears to be a truck inside a newly formed cave. The truck emerges, and Kirk suspects the attackers may have called in reinforcements, but Spock orders Sulu to hold his fire, stating that there may be more to this situation than meets the eye. As the attackers fire down upon the away team, one of them declares, "The Autobots are no match for our might," and Kirk dives to save Miraas, barely pulling her out of the line of fire. Fortunately, the truck uses its trailer to block the incoming attack, shielding the away team from harm. But Captain Kirk suspects the Klingons are behind this attack, remotely controlling the vehicles, and decides to fire a phaser shot that hits the truck in the passenger side window. But to the away team's surprise, the truck screams out in pain and begins to transform, leaving Kirk and the away team confused. The truck is revealed to be Optimus Prime, now transformed and damaged in his robot form, and Captain Kirk marvels at the sheer size of the robot. While the attackers now focus their efforts on destroying Optimus Prime, Kirk investigates the robot, trying to determine if someone is controlling the bot from the inside. Optimus responds and claims that his life is of little significance, and shows remorse for involving humans in his ongoing war. Once again, Kirk then demands that the attackers identify themselves for violating Federation space. The vehicles transform and land side by side, revealing themselves to be Starscream, Megatron, and Soundwave. Starscream gawks at Kirk that rather than leave peacefully, maybe they'll destroy them instead, while Megatron orders for Soundwave to bring the humans to their knees. Arachnid spots Kirk and declares that the others spare him so she may keep him as a pet. Kirk is flattered but tells Arachnid that she is not his type. Soundwave then uses a sonic blast to incapacitate the away team when Kirk receives a message through his communicator. Kirk responds by asking the Enterprise if the scans pick up the machines down on Cygnus 7, and commands for them to fire a photon torpedo at their location while they run for cover. Soundwave tries to alert Megatron of the incoming photon torpedo, but it's too late and the torpedo explodes, sending both bots soaring through the air. The away team fires their phasers at max power and Thundercracker tries to bring Soundwave to his feet, suggesting that they retreat. Starscream calls Thundercracker a coward, but Megatron agrees that a retreat is wise, as the humans have unseen reinforcements. The Decepticons retreat in their alternate forms, and Soundwave reports that he has detected a Decepticon signal coming from a nearby moon that they should investigate. The battle with Decepticons may be over for now, but Optimus Prime is down and out. Captain Kirk wishes to know more about the giant robot, and Spock runs scans which tell him that even though the robot is unresponsive, there is still active electrical activity throughout its body. If only they could fix him. Captain Kirk hails Scotty, who expresses gratitude that the captain is still alive after the attack, and Kirk tells Scotty that he needs him down on the surface to run diagnostics, and to bring Dr. McCoy with him. The two beam down to the surface, and McCoy seems annoyed that he's needed, seeing how all the injured miners are already being attended to by the medical team. Kirk explains that he has an unusual patient that he'd like him to look at, a machine that spoke to them. McCoy reminds Kirk that he's a doctor, not a mechanic, and doesn't understand how a talking bot is much different from a talking computer. Kirk tells him that he believes this robot has a consciousness, and would like McCoy to run scans and compare them with Scotty's, to find a way to wake the robot up. Spock then alerts the captain that he detects energy signatures within the mine, and they seem to be the same nature of the unconscious robot. Kirk tells Spock to stay with Scotty and McCoy, while he, Maress, and Sulu head out to investigate the mine. Meanwhile, the Decepticons locked into the signal Soundwave detected and are surprised when they see Trypticon, a Decepticon base, but it appears somebody has found it first. At the base, the Klingons have claimed Trypticon as their own, and are alarmed to see the Decepticons approaching, believing them to be the humans who created this strange Federation base. Megatron lands and is disgruntled to see more humans, but the Klingon is offended. He introduces himself as Commander Curie, and demands to know who the robots are if they aren't with the Federation. Megatron introduces himself as the leader of the Decepticons, and shares that he and Curie may have something in common, their hatred for humans. Curie explains that the humans had no right mining in this sector, and Megatron recounts their previous battle with the Enterprise, which gets Curie's attention. If Captain Kirk is here, Curie will not stop until he suffers the worst of all deaths. Megatron then asks Curie to tell them all that he knows, and proposes that maybe they could both benefit from working together. Elsewhere, Scotty and McCoy have run their scans, and determined that the robot's circuitry is as complex as a human brain, but they still don't know how to wake it up. While Kirk and his group make their way further into the mine following the energy signals they found earlier, Sulu tells Kirk that the signals are coming from beyond the deepest reach of the mineshaft, and the two joke that whatever may be down there could be ancient or treasure. Eventually, they come to a massive wall made up of a strange alloy, with a huge insignia they don't recognize etched into it. Maress suggests that they adjust the Enterprise scans so they can probe deeper, and suddenly the reading begins to fluctuate, and the wall explodes. As the dust settles, 5 more robots appear: Bumblebee, Jazz, RC, Ratchet, and Windblade. Jazz sees the humans and immediately accuses them of doing something to Optimus Prime. Meanwhile, McCoy, Scotty, and Spock continue their efforts to wake the sleeping bot. However, McCoy begins to have doubts, questioning whether this is a good idea. Scotty reassures him, reminding him that the bot had expressed a desire to protect humans, and they need to wake it to understand where it came from and what it's doing on Cygnus 7. Spock agrees, stating that the risk is minimal. He also points out that the attackers they encountered earlier bore a different symbol, suggesting they are unrelated. Observing that the electrical signs in the bot's circuitry mimic the neural activity of a humanoid brain, Spock attempts a Vulcan mind meld. Suddenly, Spock is flooded with visions of a vast metal planet named Cybertron, torn apart by an endless war, a starship crash landing on Earth, and a battle against an eternal enemy. McCoy quickly snaps Spock out of the meld, fearing the connection might harm him, but Spock reassures him that he's fine. Scotty then notices something. The bot is waking up. As it rises to its feet, the bot introduces itself as Optimus Prime and expresses his deep gratitude to the humans. Optimus turns to Spock, curious about their mental connection. Noting that Spock does not seem fully human, Spock introduces himself as a half-human first officer of the Federation starship Enterprise, and he proceeds to introduce Scotty and Dr. McCoy. Remembering his mission, Optimus asks where the Decepticons are. Spock explains that after Optimus fell unconscious, the Decepticons retreated, leaving him as the only remaining robot. Optimus, however, promises that he is not alone. Deep within the mine, Jazz fires at Kirk and his team, distrustful of the humans, demanding to know what they did to Optimus. Maress leaps onto Bumblebee, attempting to claw at him. Kirk proceeds to ask who Optimus Prime is, but that irritates Jazz and he accuses Kirk of playing dumb, refusing to believe the humans don't know who Optimus is. Kirk is genuinely confused and insists they've never encountered robots like them before. Ratchet then pulls Jazz aside, reminding him that they're underground, and blasting away might not be the wisest move. Meanwhile, Bumblebee effortlessly lifts Maress, amused by her attempts to harm him, calling her a funny-looking human. Windblade, holding Sulu, waits for the signal to toss him aside, Kirk interjects, trying to get their attention. Wait, did you say Optimus Prime? A robot like you? One that can transform from a truck into a humanoid form? Jazz, still suspicious, thinks Kirk is just toying with them. Kirk explains that they came to Cygnus 7 to protect a human mining operation from robots that look just like the Autobots. He recalls hitting one with a phaser, which transformed before their eyes. Bumblebee fears the worst, and asks if Kirk killed Optimus Prime, but Kirk reassures him Optimus is alive, and members of his crews are helping him on the surface. Ratchet and RC deduce that the attackers must have been Decepticons, and Kirk pleads with the Autobots to believe him when he says they mean no harm, and ask who they really are. At the Trypticon base, Megatron questions Curie about how the Klingons found them. Curie explains that their ship was damaged by the Enterprise, leading to their crash here. Seeing how they share a disdain for humans, Curie proposes an alliance. Starscream is unimpressed and questions why they even need help from such small creatures, mocking their failure to defeat the humans before. This offends Curie and he blames their loss on an ambush by Kirk's crew. Megatron picks up Curie and while he admires his spirit, he agrees with Starscream. Why should they work together? Curie states that the Enterprise will see giant robots coming from a mile away, and that he can help give them an advantage in battle, before asking Megatron what he knows about cloaking technology. Meanwhile, back in the mine, Jazz directs Bumblebee to share their history with Kirk's team. Bumblebee introduces himself and explains that he and his fellow Autobots hail from Cybertron. 4 million years ago, their planet veered out of control, eventually bringing them to Earth, where they used their ability to transform to blend in with Earth vehicles. But the Decepticons followed, seeking to conquer the planet. The Autobots fought to protect humanity until the outbreak of World War III. Feeling abandoned, they left Earth aboard a massive Cybertronian, Fortress Maximus, in search of Energon. They searched for decades before finding a large energy source, but the Decepticons pursued them aboard a colossal dinosaur warship, Trypticon. The battle led to their crash on Cygnus 7, where they've remained dormant until now. Kirk speculates that Optimus may have awoken upon hearing the Decepticons attack the miners. Windblade agrees, saying it sounds like the Optimus she knows. On the Enterprise, Arix informs Spock that they've tracked the attackers' trail but are unsure what they're dealing with. Spock explains that they are sentient robots capable of sensory and emotional thought. Scotty adds, under all that metal, they're just as human as the rest of us. Well, maybe not Spock. Arix suggests trying to reason with them, but when they reach the attackers' last known position, they find that they're gone. Suddenly, a Klingon warship advances on their position. The Enterprise is flown into a trap. The Klingon ship opens fire, and Arix alerts Spock that they're under attack. Elsewhere, Soundwave intercepts human communications and informs Megatron that the humans are divided. With the Enterprise crippled, Megatron believes victory is within reach, and he declares that they will take all the Energon. Curie explains that they will drive the Federation out for the glory of the Klingon Empire. Back in the mine, Maress attempts to contact Spock, but the communicators can't penetrate the walls of the mine. Kirk suggests they head to the surface on foot, or perhaps with a little help, maybe they could take a road trip. RC is all for it, seeing it as a good opportunity to teach them how to fight Decepticons. On the surface above, Optimus learns the Enterprise engaged the Decepticons alone, and McCoy reassures him that the Enterprise has already defeated them once, but Optimus remains concerned. They don't seem to understand the threat that they're facing. Megatron is treacherous, and Optimus suggests pooling their resources to go after the Decepticons together. But before they can act, an explosion rocks the area, sealing off the mine's exit. Starscream, Arachnid, and Thundercracker arrive, planning to eliminate the humans, and as Optimus and the humans take cover, Ratchet and RC strategize on how to even the odds. Ratchet suggests a risky plan. They'll need to reactivate Fortress Maximus, with a little help from Captain Kirk. But Kirk's willing to go along with it. It may be risky, but Kirk is willing to do whatever it takes. As the mining colony descends into chaos, Soundwave and Starscream are toying with the humans, and Starscream asks Soundwave to record the sounds of the humans' screams so he can listen to it again later. Spock and Scotty focus their fire on the Decepticons, but their phasers are outmatched by the Decepticons' firepower. While McCoy tries to hold back an eager Optimus from engaging in the fight, the humans won't last long without help, and so Optimus signals for the humans to take cover behind him. Arachnid fires at the humans, and Optimus protects them by shielding them from her attack, taking every shot in the back. Spock and Scotty fire the phasers at Arachnid, but it will take a lot more than that to bring her down. As McCoy checks on the miners, he calls Optimus more stubborn than his own captain. What was he thinking, taking all those blasts point blank? And speaking of the captain, Scotty begins to question what has become of Kirk and the other members of his landing party. Meanwhile, several hundred meters below ground, Ratchet is putting the final touches on a machine he's built. He believes that this machine could be the best and only option for defeating the Decepticons. Kirk stands inside the contraption while Windblade questions whether or not Kirk can stand the strain of the connection, but Sulu claims that if anyone can, it's the captain. The connection is successful, and images of the past and present flood Kirk's mind, from when he was a young boy, the years he spent at Starfleet Academy, and the ongoing war between the Autobots and the Decepticons. Whatever Ratchet has done has worked, and a blueprint of the Enterprise appears on a large display screen. Nobody knows the Enterprise better than Kirk, and when he steps out of the machine, he assures Maress that he's alright, and is blown away by the extraordinary things he just saw. Jazz expresses to Kirk that he's impressed how brave he is, and that he can see why his crew follows his lead. And now that Ratchet has the blueprints of the Enterprise at his disposal, he can finally get to work. Above ground, Starscream believes he has the upper hand, and that he only wishes that Megatron was here to witness his victory over the mighty Optimus Prime. He believes that Megatron chose him for this mission because he is the only one who could do it. He shouts at Optimus that the fight is over, and invites him to face him head-on, or hide like a coward. Optimus plans to distract them to allow the humans to escape, but McCoy reminds him that he's still his patient, and he isn't about to let Optimus walk into a death trap. Spock agrees with McCoy, stating that facing the Decepticons in his weakened state is most illogical. Spock hands Scotty his phaser and steps out to face the Decepticons, hands in the air. Starscream laughs at the idea that Optimus would send a human pet to take his place in battle, but Spock corrects Starscream. He's not human, he's half-human, and he doesn't seek a battle with him, as they obviously have a superior advantage. Instead, Spock surrenders. Curie asks Spock if he has finally come to his senses, that the Federation stands no chance against the might of the Klingon Empire, but Spock corrects him. He simply recognized that there was no use resisting a superior force, and he hopes that their surrender will ensure the survival of the mining colony they set out to protect. Annoyed, Starscream states that Spock sounds just like Prime, but Optimus is proud to stand with his new half-human friend and demands that they let the humans leave safely. Starscream shrugs and says, "Why should I? They would not hesitate to put an end to me," but he's interrupted by a loud explosion. The side of the mountain erupts, rocks flying everywhere, leaving a large opening, and everyone's surprised as the Enterprise exits the mountain opening and flies over the Decepticons and the humans. Nobody can believe it. How in the world did the Enterprise get inside this moon? And who in bloody blue blazes is following her out of it? Ratchet, Windblade, and Bumblebee have arrived, and inside each vehicle is a member of the away team. Sulu tells Windblade that she flies like a dream, but she reminds him that she doesn't need his help. She's been doing this a long time, and Maress struggles with the off-road experience Bumblebee provides. But now that they're here, it's time to take down the Decepticons. As the Enterprise engages a Klingon warship above, something begins happening to its hull. Optimus recognizes the threat immediately. The very thing that doomed their Energon mission has returned: Trypticon. The humans panic as Spock identifies Trypticon as a massive metal version of an extinct Tyrannosaurus Rex, commenting on the illogical choice for a Cybertronian. Curie orders Starscream to kill the humans if they try to flee, but the away team is pinned between the Decepticons and an enraged Trypticon. And McCoy wonders where in the world is Captain Kirk. Inside the Enterprise, the captain is hooked up with wires connected to his temple, and Ratchet explains that the ship should obey his thoughts, but it might prove to be less strenuous if he was able to think in Cybertronian. The Enterprise focuses its fire on Trypticon, while the Autobots take the fight to the Decepticons. Jazz finds himself in trouble, pursued by Arachnid's aerial attacks, but RC leaps out of nowhere, tackling Arachnid mid-flight. Curie, unimpressed, wonders why the Decepticons seem to struggle so much. Starscream shares the same sentiment about the Klingon forces, just as RC delivers a well-placed kick, sending Starscream crashing to the ground. She urges the humans to use this opportunity to escape, pointing out that Captain Kirk is risking his life piloting the Enterprise solo. Spock declares it's impossible that Kirk is operating a starship of that class alone. Before the ground forces can overwhelm Spock and Scotty, Optimus calls out for them to watch their backs. Megatron has arrived. Without hesitation, Megatron charges toward Optimus Prime. RC wants to assist, but the away team has their own problems to deal with, as Klingons surround them. Curie orders his forces to dispose of the intruders for the honor of the Empire. Just as the Klingons move to attack, the away team is beamed aboard the Enterprise. All miners and crew are accounted for, but Ratchet isn't finished. He has one last plan to tip the scales. With his mind straining, Kirk struggles to control the ship. It's overwhelming, but he has no choice. He must succeed for the sake of his crew and everyone on Cygnus 7. As his focus reaches its limit, the Enterprise begins to transform. Kirk pushes through the pain. The people he cares about need him. They need the power of Fortress Tiberius. Fortress Tiberius under Captain Kirk's command wields the power of a Federation starship, but Kirk struggles to maintain control as he feels the overwhelming emotions of Fortress Maximus. Ratchet warns him not to let Maximus's rage and thirst for revenge consume him, while the Autobots begin to question if this plan was a mistake. McCoy urges Kirk to pull himself together as the miners can't handle much more of whatever it is that he's doing. Fighting to keep control, Kirk manages to fire at Trypticon, and Spock and McCoy debate the ethics of disobeying Starfleet's General Order 2, the prohibition against taking intelligent life, but they joke about making an exception for Trypticon, who, after all, is a dinosaur, and dinosaurs have been extinct for a long time. Meanwhile, the battle isn't going well for the Klingons. Curie chastises Starscream, who had guaranteed them victory, and the appearance of Megatron causes panic among the humans and Autobots, forcing them to regroup. Megatron searches for his fellow Decepticons, but realizes that Starscream has disappeared. Unbeknownst to Curie or Megatron, Starscream has slipped away to the dilithium mines. His plan? To use the dilithium to ascend to power and claim the destiny he believes is rightfully his. As the Autobots regroup, they discuss the Klingon-Decepticon alliance and debate whether the Federation's mission to protect all life, including their enemies, is a strength or a liability. Suddenly, Trypticon's massive feet almost crush them as he stomps past. Megatron soon spots Starscream fleeing with stolen dilithium. Enraged, Megatron calls him a treacherous coward, as Starscream cloaks his ship and escapes the moon's atmosphere. Megatron is furious and blames Curie for giving Starscream access to the Klingon cloaking technology, and retaliates by attacking the Klingon ground forces. Optimus, battered and barely able to stand, faces off against Megatron. As the two engage in battle, the Autobots are caught between fighting the Decepticons and avoiding being crushed by Trypticon, who continues to overpower Fortress Tiberius. Inside Fortress Tiberius, Kirk struggles to suppress Fortress Maximus's emotions, which fuel his desire for vengeance against Trypticon, the very being responsible for Maximus's crash landing and long stasis. Kirk fights to remember who he truly is, not Fortress Maximus, but Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. However, if Fortress Tiberius falls, so will Kirk. As the battle rages outside, Jazz lands a blow that infuriates Megatron, who threatens to crush him just like a Klingon. Despite their strength, the Autobots are barely holding the line. As the battle between consciousness continues, Kirk finally gains full control of Fortress Tiberius and delivers a powerful punch to Trypticon's head. Unfortunately, the strike only seems to anger the Metal Titan further. Realizing that the battle is turning, Megatron orders a retreat. Trypticon transforms into a Klingon warship, and Megatron vows to return to crush them all. Inside Fortress Tiberius, McCoy checks on Kirk, worried that Maximus might have taken control of his mind. But Kirk reassures him, even though he's exhausted, that he's still himself. With the Klingon ground forces captured, Optimus praises Kirk's courage. Spock approaches Curie, preparing to arrest him, but Curie demands an honorable execution rather than the disgrace of a Starfleet prison. But being trapped in the brig is the least of his problems. Fortress Tiberius scans reveal that Starscream is headed straight for Klingon space, and Windblade speculates that Starscream plans to conquer Kronos, the Klingon homeworld. And while one villain taking over another villain's planet might not seem like a big deal, Spock reminds everyone that Starfleet is bound to protect even their adversaries from slaughter. Back aboard the real Enterprise, Uhura receives no response to her distress calls. With no impulse engines and a failing warp core, the crew is unsure if Kirk and the others are even alive, until Uhura suddenly gets an incoming transmission from the Starship Enterprise. Kirk's voice comes through. Kirk explains through the transmission that they've arrived with the rest of their crew, a brig full of Klingons and a few new friends that they plan to beam over. The Autobots are beamed over to the hangar bay of the real Enterprise, and Uhura questions whether or not Kirk will return to the ship. But it's a complicated situation. His mind is still connected to Fortress Tiberius. There's a lot to debrief everyone about, so Kirk establishes ship-wide communications. With time running out, the Enterprise needs repairs before they can pursue Starscream and prevent him from conquering Kronos. Optimus and his Autobots offer their help to get the Enterprise back on its feet, while Kirk juggles the thought of whether or not he risks invading the Klingon Empire to save it. On the Decepticon Klingon ship, Soundwave informs Megatron that they can find dilithium elsewhere, but Megatron isn't concerned with the dilithium. He's focused on making sure Starscream pays for his treachery. He's entertained Starscream's ambitions long enough, and now it's time to end them. While far across space, Starscream arrives at the Klingon homeworld Kronos. At long last, he has what he has always desired, a planet of his own to rule. After much deliberation, Captain Kirk decides to invade the Klingon Empire to stop the Decepticon forces. And Spock, now acting captain of the real Enterprise, agrees with the plan but is concerned about the ship's condition after their battle with the Decepticons. In the hangar bay, Optimus Prime addresses the humans, reminding them that their conflict with the Decepticons has dragged the Enterprise crew and the Klingons into danger. It's their duty to protect them, even if the Autobots must do it alone. Kirk, however, believes the Autobots would struggle without Fortress Maximus, who can currently only be controlled by him. While Kirk understands Optimus's perspective, he mentions Starfleet's most sacred law, the Prime Directive, which is an oath of non-interference with developing cultures. But Optimus adapts his own law, Prime's Directive, where by action or inaction he shall allow Cybertronians to cause no harm to any civilization, no matter their relationship with his allies. Meanwhile, on Kronos, the Klingon High Council discusses the Federation laying claim to Cygnus 7, the whereabouts of their forces, and the multiple unidentified vessels that have just crossed the neutral zone. They believe this to be an act of regression by the Federation, and it cannot be tolerated. When suddenly an explosion interrupts their discussion. If the Federation is here already, then they're too late. Perhaps 4 million years too late, as Starscream marches through the opening in the wall. During his journey to Kronos, Starscream took the opportunity to learn how to understand and speak Klingon. The language impresses him, it's so rough and aggressive. If only he could say the same about its people. He hurls a boulder at the Klingon High Council and declares himself their new ruler, Emperor Starscream I. The two Enterprises are en route to Kronos at maximum warp, but their plan is a work in progress. Kirk promises to not leave Optimus alone to deal with the Klingons, but he won't risk his crew blindly. Both Optimus and Kirk recognize the burden of leadership is the same, standing by your principles and knowing every command risks the lives of friends and allies. Optimus adds that he wishes that he had more than one life to lay down, and that gives Kirk an idea. With only 6 hours until they reach Kronos, Kirk asks Scotty just how much inorganic material the replicator can create in that amount of time. Back on Kronos, Starscream demands that the Klingons do his bidding, or their people will be destroyed. Starscream may have learned their language, but he knows nothing of their traditions, as any Klingon would choose death with honor before life without it. Starscream then fires a blast at the High Council, and declares that he's crushed more High Councils than Klingons have words for awkward-bladed weapon. Every government has a breaking point. If leaders wanted to die with honor, they'd be on the battlefield, not hiding in a city out of the line of fire. And at that moment, multiple blasts rain down on the city. Starscream believes it to be the Autobots. Why should they care if he conquered some angry little organics? The Klingons take this distraction as a moment of opportunity, and turn their weapons against Starscream and blast him in the chest. And Starscream comes to the realization that it wasn't the Autobots that followed him here, it's something much worse. The Decepticons. Megatron commands Soundwave to increase their forces. At his command, Soundwave ejects Ravage, Laserbeak, Buzzsaw, Rumble, and Frenzy. But Starscream doesn't want to fight. He wants to talk, but Megatron isn't in the mood to negotiate. Megatron plans to show him what it takes to command an empire, and that whatever this planet is called is now under his control. Megatron declares this planet New Kaon the capital of the Decepticon Empire. But he needs more dilithium for his expansion, so he commands Soundwave to use his cassettes to control the Klingons. But once again, they are not alone. Fortress Tiberius, the Enterprise crew, and the Autobots have arrived and declare war against the Decepticons. Optimus confronts Megatron and tells him that a world does not belong to any one being. It belongs to all the life forms who call it home. Megatron brushes off these words, stating that they're too late. This world is now his, and the Klingons respect his power. But he is mistaken. Curie tells Megatron that the truce between the Klingons and Decepticons is over, and that as long as one Klingon heart still beats, he will never be victorious. Megatron retaliates by commanding his Decepticons to destroy them all, and it's all-out war between all factions. And Kirk's idea is placed into motion as multiple brand new robots controlled by the crew of the Enterprise enter the fight. Optimus and Megatron are locked in a battle of strength, and Optimus taunts Megatron by reminding him of his failure on Earth, and that history will repeat itself here, but Megatron believes the Decepticons outnumber the Autobots. The Decepticons can overpower the Autobots with their strength, and their human allies are outmatched. As Scotty, Sulu, and Maress defend themselves against Decepticon warriors, Sulu has a trick up his sleeve. To help even the odds, a sword appears from his forearm, and he uses it to cut down the Decepticons. Megatron sees this trick and declares that they've made preparations of their own, and he orders Soundwave to deploy his own secret weapon, a devastating sonic frequency that leaves the Autobots and their Starfleet allies paralyzed. As Megatron taunts the defeated Kirk, announcing his plans to conquer Kronos and Earth, he's approached by Curie. Megatron believes the Klingons seek mercy, but Curie points out that their sonic weapon has no effect on Klingon ears. In fact, it was Kirk who made a suggestion before he beamed down the Klingons that allowed them to make preparations and modify their weapons for maximum effect on Cybertronians. Suddenly, an armada of Klingon ships appear overhead and fire down on Megatron, sending him flying. The Klingon ships continue raining down fire on all the Decepticons on the battlefield, and a confident Curie states that the Decepticons have underestimated them, that there is more to them than meets the eye. Sometime later, a tentative truce has been established between the Federation and the Klingons, one which leaves Megatron and the other Decepticons in Klingon custody. And not far away, Kirk and the other crew members of the Enterprise prepare to head back to Earth and say their goodbyes to Optimus and the other Autobots, who plan to continue traveling the universe aboard Fortress Tiberius, and pledge to assist the Federation if their services are ever needed. As the two starships part ways, Kirk promises to keep a hailing frequency wide open for them, and puts a twist on Spock's preferred saying as he bids their new friends farewell. Live long, Autobots, and roll out. Well, that's going to wrap up our look at Star Trek versus the Transformers, and I know this video was a little bit longer, but I appreciate you guys hanging in there and checking it out. Hopefully you enjoyed the story. There was a lot of stuff that I wanted to cover when it came to this comic, just because there was so many catchphrases and subtleties about both franchises blended into the comic, and I wanted to give you the same experience that I had when I read it myself. So I tried to convey that as best as I possibly could. But let me know in the comments if you guys enjoyed this crossover. Don't forget to like this video and sub to the channel for more. And stay tuned, because I got a lot of comics that I'm going to be covering over the next couple months. Until then.
Live long and prosper.